Hi everyone, I'm Tess from the Indian Block Print Company and thank you for joining me for my Joy of Print inspired project printing tutorial. So you may have seen that back in June of this year, we collaborated with Joy of Print, which is Kath Kidston Padden's print studio. Now she founded this a couple of years ago and we were so fortunate to collaborate with them. They were fantastic to work with and we're still working with them now. We've got a few workshops coming up in October, which we're really excited about. And since we've launched the designs, they've been so popular, but I wanted to share with you my favourite printing project to do with the designs. So you may have already seen that Joy of Print designed us a beautiful range of geranium printing blocks, a set of bespoke colours and an English garden set of printing blocks. Now you can see I've got a couple of cushions here which I want to show you how to make today. I love making my own cushions. They're so easy to make, really effective, very low cost, and it's just a great way to use your printing blocks. So I've already made 3 cushion covers here using the designs from the geranium set. So that's got, I think it's 3 different geranium blocks. It's got a little blossom block, a flower pot and a leaf. So that's a really lovely set. You can have a look at that on our website. And I use the Joy of Print colours to go with that. But today I wanted to do something with the English garden set. Now I'm going to make a set of cushion covers. Now this is a beautiful collection. Hopefully you've seen them on our website, but the set of printing blocks comes in this really lovely gift box. It comes with a wraparound sleeve, so it shows you what's in there. And then inside you've got a postcard and it tells you a little bit about our collaboration with Kath and her team and where the inspiration came from for the designs. And then in the set, you've got these beautiful printing blocks. So I'll talk you through the design. So you've got Kath herself and her lovely dog. You've got a greenhouse, a potted geranium, a fence, a little kind of grassy border, and then 2 lovely tree designs. And it makes what you call a toile design. So it's a lovely repeated pattern. And this is very easy to create. Sometimes things like this can maybe scare people, but when you just work through it one block at a time, and you'll be able to build up this pattern slowly, it creates something so incredible. So that's what I'm going to be showing you how to do today. So I'm going to be using the English garden set of designs. Now I'm going to be making a cushion cover, like I said. So you can obviously print something that's already made. We sell lots of already pre-made items, you know, cushion covers in different sizes and things. But one thing that I love to do is to print onto fabric and then sew it into something. Having just, you know, kind of fabric that's not restricted by, you know, where it's already sewn is really refreshing. It means that you can print the whole piece of fabric. If you make a mistake, you can just keep printing more. And then what you can do is cut out the piece at the end and then you can sew that. I've actually cut out my cushion cover pieces ready just to make it super speedy. But it gives a really professional feel to your finished item when your prints go right up to the edge or you outline it with a border. So it's just a really lovely project that you can do yourself at home. Now, I'm no good at sewing, but I can do a simple stitch on a sewing machine and that's all you need for this. I'm sure there's much more fancy techniques that you could use, but I think it was probably a few years ago now I did my first cushion cover video and I just googled like easy envelope cushion and that's what I've been using. So that's the method that I'm going to teach you today. I'm sure you'll probably know better if you're watching at home, but I'm going to talk you through my project and I'm going to talk you through the way that I do it, and then hopefully you'll be able to relate to this at home. So I'm going to be printing onto a lovely natural coloured calico today. So this is just a calico that I've got in my studio. We love to print on calico. It's really hard wearing as well, so I think it's going to work really well in the garden because I'm going to use these as kind of summer cushions. And I don't need to worry, you know, if it's white, it might show up the dirt a bit more. But I think this kind of natural colour is really good. And the green paint that we're going to be using onto it works really well on the natural colour. So that's what I'm going to be using. So my cushion insert that I've got is from Dunelm. It's a feather insert. It was £5, so really low cost. So it's a really lovely project that, you know, anyone can try at home. You might already have some cushion cover inserts. And my cushion cover insert is 32 by 52 centimetres, okay? So I add 2 centimetres to both sides. And that's what I have for my seam allowance. So I'll write this down so that you have it. But my main body of fabric that's going to be the front, this is 34 centimetres wide by 54 centimeters long. So 2 centimeters on each side additional. So I've got a kind of 1 centimeter seam allowance on each side. So 34 wide, 54 centimeters in length. And then my 2 back pieces, I'm just going to create a really simple envelope fixing on the back. I'm not going to do any buttons or zips or anything. It's just a really simple envelope. So you're going to need 2 pieces for your back, which I've cut. So these are both 34 centimeters in width, so the same as our front panel. But I've got one that is 39 centimeters long, and the other is 31 centimeters long. And those are going to slightly overlap when we sew them together on the back. But again, it's super simple. You probably know a better method, but this is just the one that I use, and I find it really easy. And it's very easy to replicate. You know, when I'm cutting out the fabric, I normally cut out several pieces of each size so that I have a stash of fabric. So once I've made a cushion, I can, you know, quickly make another one, or I can use it for another time, because I make these all the time. They also make fantastic presents. Like if you got given a cushion that was handmade and in a really beautiful pattern, and obviously you can personalize it to what that person might like, it's just a really lovely gift. So that's what I'm going to be using. So on the next slide, I'll put the measurements of what I'm using, and then you can copy that if you want to at home. So first of all, we're going to do the printing, and then I'm going to hop onto the sewing table later, and I'll just do a simple stitch around it and show you how that works. So I'm going to clear my desk ready for printing. I'll move the camera, and then we'll get started. Right, so I've got my front panel of my cushion cover on my printing table ready to get printing. Now I have got a padded table, so I've got my foam under my tablecloth, but make sure that you've always got your foam printing mat or something soft under the fabric you're printing. I've also got a little bit of paper here. This is going to catch any paint that goes off the edges. So one thing that you really want to bear in mind when you're printing something like this is you don't really want to have any white gaps around the edge. So I'm going to make sure my design overlaps on all 4 sides of the fabric, because when I sew that, it's going to create that really professional finish, and it's really going to help. So make sure you print over the edges of your fabric. And I am going to be printing with this lovely dark spring green. So when Kath and her team designed the English garden, this was the colour they designed to go with it. So this looks so beautiful, and that's what I'm going to be using. I'm just going to be using one colour all over to create this toile design. Now when I'm going to be printing this, I'm going to be printing one at a time, and I'm going to kind of create a repeat pattern. And I'm going to print this all the way across. So I'm going to start in the top corner and work my way across. And just printing one design at a time, just working out what works where with the spacing. So just take it slowly and just think about it kind of methodically when you're doing it. So I'm going to get started with my greenhouse. Now I'm going to overlap my first print over the edge so that I start setting myself off on a good kind of pace. So just lightly tapping your paint all over like you normally would. And my first print, and I've got my paper underneath just to catch any paint that goes over the edge. So a good wiggle, side to side, up and down, to get all the edges of the block touching the fabric, and then pull it up. Now this calico is a little bit thicker than some white cotton, so I always find I have to hold the block down for a few seconds longer. So that's always something worth bearing in mind. And like I said, I'm just going to print one at a time. When I print this lovely block of Kath herself in her garden, I always tap very lightly with my sponge and just go over it a few times, because it's got some quite fine detail there. So you don't want to fill it up with paint and get a splodge. And it's quite a big block, so I'm going to give it a good wiggle. There we go. So I'm just going to print one block at a time across my fabric. I'll speed it up so I don't bore you. And you can just see that I take it one block at a time and just making sure that my design fits in well. And I'm also printing over the edge. So I've now printed each design once, and that's the way I kind of like to do it. I like to do a little scene, and it's so amazing, this set. Like you just develop this little pattern, and already that looks beautiful. You know, you've got the dog, you've got the fence and the tree, like it all works so well together. But I like to do it quite methodically, so I print one at a time, and then what I'm going to do is I'm probably going to work in the same order back through the designs and do it in the same way. So next up, as I did with my first print, I'm going to print with my greenhouse. And that way I feel that the spacing really works. So it's quite important that you practice this design, because I haven't left too much space in between each design. You know, this is the way that I like to do it. So it's really worth practicing that in the early stages. Now I'm nearing the end of my piece of fabric, and the lovely thing about this pattern and this set of designs is you've got so many different shapes and sizes. You can always find something to fit in the space you have, and that's what really works about the set of designs. Is if you're struggling to fill any of the spaces, you just need to kind of have a play around with the designs that you've got and just look, you know, it's kind of planning ahead a little bit before you print, you know, and just making sure that you're going to be able to fit the blocks in the spaces. But you can see, you can always find something that's going to work. So I've got this beautiful bit of fabric now, which I'm going to leave aside to dry. And while I'm doing that, I can have a look at stitching my two back pieces. So I've got one more print here to do. See, in this corner here. So we can just have a little look at what fits in that gap. So I'm just going to do the little potted plant. There we go. So I'm going to leave that aside to dry. I'll move that up here, and then I'll show you with my two smaller pieces. So what you want to do is on the 34 centimeter, so that's kind of the width of the fabric, I'm just going to fold it over and just do a simple stitch down there to create a bit of a neat hemmed edge, as we're going to be able to see one of the pieces where they cross over with each other. So you only really need to hem one, but I'm going to hem both of them just to create a nice neat edge down the side, and I'll show you where I get to. So I've let my printed piece of fabric dry. I've ironed this as well to heat set it and make sure it's perfectly flat, so it's ready to start making into our cushion cover. So first of all, like I said, while this was drying, I got my two smaller pieces of fabric, and I just did a little hemmed edge just to make it nice and neat for where there's going to be the envelope overlap at the back. So I've got my two hemmed edge pieces, and I've got my printed piece of fabric. Now we're going to pin it together, so we need to pin it together inside out. So you're going to have your printed main piece of fabric, print side facing up. Then you're going to take your larger of your two pieces, and again, you're going to place that over the top, hemmed edge, so the neat edge facing down onto the print. And this will make sense later when we're turning it inside out. So neat hemmed edge facing onto the print, the stitch side is facing up. And then we're going to do the same again with our smaller piece, again neat hemmed edge facing down. So you can see I've got it like that. So I've got a small overlap there where there's going to be the envelope. Now you don't want too much of an overlap, so this one I find works well with these measurements, because otherwise it's too tight to get the cushion pad inside. So now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put a couple of pins around the cushion just to hold it all together, and then we're going to go over to the sewing machine, and like I said, I'm just going to do a really simple running stitch around all four sides, and that's going to hold it all together. So there we go, I've pinned my 3 pieces together, so it's ready to go into the sewing machine. Now when I stitch it, remember I left a 1 centimetre seam allowance on each side. So occasionally, like what I've done is, you know, I've sewn it and then I've it's been a bit loose, so then I've gone back in and tightened it slightly. So like for me, when I'm not very confident at sewing, that's what I would rather do. But I'm getting better now, so I'm going to do a 1 centimetre kind of seam allowance on all sides, and then it should fit in our cushion pad nice and snug. So we're going to go to the sewing machine and we'll do that. So once you're finished on the sewing machine, you're ready to reveal your cushion cover. So we're just going to turn it the right way round, and when you're turning it over, make sure you push out the corners using your fingers just to get them properly out. And you can see it's a really simple stitch, just a running stitch all the way round. You could tidy it up a little bit more, or if you've got an overlocker, you could use that. I leave mine quite rustic on the inside. I quite often tidy it up and just cut all the loose threads, especially if I'm going to give it as a gift. But otherwise, it's really simple to accomplish. And say, for example, you did, you know, you stitched it and it was a little bit big. All you need to do is turn it back inside out and just do another stitch, you know, slightly more inwards, and that would tighten it up again. So it's really easy if you do make a mistake. There's been several times where I've unpicked a couple of stitches. So I've got my cushion pad. Now again, these are from Dunelm, £5, and mine is a 32 by 52 centimetre insert. So I'm going to pop this inside and then we'll see how it looks. Now the envelope on the back is just really easy. Like, it's so easy to sew, you know, only needing 3 bits of fabric. I mean, you could even just do it as like a continuous piece of fabric if you wanted, if you're good at measuring. You don't even need to cut the 3 pieces, but you want to just plump it out so you've got that really lovely, easy fold on the back, which looks really neat and just super, you know, it looks really professional, but it was really easy to accomplish. So let's reveal our cushion cover, which looks absolutely beautiful. I love this toile design. It looks so beautiful, and printed just in one colour in the dark spring green, it really pops to me. So I'm going to make a set for my garden. So hopefully in September we're going to get some sun, because it's been a little bit rainy recently, but this is a really good project to, you know, carry out in the evening or on a rainy day, because it really doesn't take very long and you can really easily whip up a few. Like, if you printed all your bits of fabric, you could stitch them all together and you'd have a whole set made in a couple of hours. This project from start to finish takes me about half an hour. So from cutting the fabric to printing it to then sewing it. Obviously, I'm quite confident and maybe a bit speedy with the printing, but if you're using something you're confident with or you've practiced it before, it should be just as quick for you. So I'm so happy with this. It looks beautiful. So I hope you've enjoyed watching it. And another thank you to Joy of Print and Kath and her team for the wonderful collaboration. I love these printing blocks, and this English garden, it just inspires me every time I see it. And you can see behind me a tote bag which I've printed, which I'll share another time. But I really hope you'll have a go at printing your own cushion covers, whether that's using the English garden set or the geranium set. They look fantastic, and it's just a really beautiful design which I think works well in everybody's garden. So you can see all the products that I've used on our website. I'll link the descriptions below, and also the sizes of my pad and my cushion cover. And you can find everything on our website, which is www.theindianblockprintco.com. And thank you so much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed it, and happy printing.